Welcome to the game of DLC. It is a pretty fun game. It is a dating sim, which is also a horror game at the same time. It was released in 2017. Developer in Team Salvato, and it was also used Renpai. It's also a single player video game. And of course, there are a bunch of things. It's a dating sim, indie game, casual game, simulation game, and a lot more. And it's also allowed on a lot of computers. No mobile version, however. Yes, it also has a pretty big community. But we can also look at a couple facts from YouTube. Yes, I usually don't do that, but 7 things about Doki Doki Literature Club is good. DLC is a pretty unique game. When it first came out, no one knew it was gonna get to that exact thing. There are 7 things about it. Here we go. There's also a lot of hidden things that actually hint a new game, a new horror game as well. Which is actually pretty impressive, I want to say.
Doki Doki Literature Club is the latest haunting indie horror game that proves that writing poetry and flirting with cute girls has never been more terrifying. Don't let this game's cute visual novel packaging fool you. It is straight up horrifying. Hey, I'm Brendan with the leaderboard, and today we're revealing 7 facts about Doki Doki Literature Club. So grab some cupcakes and get ready to join the Literature Club.
I've seen it. If you also go see the channel.
Dan Salvato, founder of Team Salvato, wrote the original story for the game back in 2015. Doki Doki Literature Club is his first full-length game, but he had a hand in developing other games prior to its release. Salvato was a professional Super Smash Bros. Player who contributed to the development of Project M, a mod that allowed Super Smash Bros. Brawl to implement the mechanics of Melee. He is also well known for creating one of the most difficult Super Mario Maker levels in existence, P is for Pain, and for creating the Twitch extension Franker Faces. Salvato explained that the idea for Doki Doki came from his ambivalence towards anime and anime tropes like the tsundere, Genki girl, and yandere. He explained that the genre is filled with plots revolving around, quote, cute girls doing cute things, and that he wanted to develop a game that would completely subvert everybody's expectations. Salvato focused on creating a growing sense of unease rather than capitalizing on the extremely popular jump scare vein of horror games. He took inspiration from games like Irisu Syndrome, Eversion, and Yume Nikki, and sought to create a game that would appeal to both people who love visual novels and those who were new to visual novels. Salvato kept the game free to play to encourage those new adopters to give it a try, and also to prevent people from feeling tricked into buying a game that capitalizes on not being everything it appears to be. Of course, the game wouldn't be the indie masterpiece it is without the input of 2 extremely talented artists who helped bring the game to life. Valinquin, a Ukrainian artist, implemented 3D modeling to create the base of Doki Doki's immersive, gorgeous backgrounds. Sashale utilized Clip Studio Paint to create the initial drawings for each of the characters, and then followed up with Photoshop to finish each character design. While the artist fleshed out the project visually, Salvato wrote Doki Doki's entire script, including all of the girls' poems. Since the game's plot, spoiler alert, was relatively straightforward, an innocent slice-of-life romance that gradually gets darker as one girl controls the entire game, Salvato worked to create tension beneath the surface. Each one of the girls has a distinct voice within their poems, and all the dialogue can tie back to another element in the game, or foreshadow the horrors yet to come. He was inspired to include poetry because of his own experiences writing poetry. He also attended a few poetry readings with his roommate, who is in graduate school studying poetry. The characters mimic tropes typically present in visual novels, including the protagonist. The main character's interactions with each girl change based on the girl's personality, which results in the main character actually being pretty awful towards the girls, Sayori most of all. Salvato explained that this was an intentional choice, meant to highlight how unrealistic the responses of female characters are in a lot of visual novels. Salvato explained that he constantly wanted to give the characters more depth but forced himself to refrain from expanding the game further than was necessary. With the artwork and script taken care of, Salvato programmed the entire game using RenPy, a free open-source visual novel engine that makes it easy for anybody to create their own visual novel. Salvato stated that RenPy was very easy to work with and allowed him a lot of free reign in manipulating the code to get Doki Doki to have the impact he wanted. He decided to limit the glitches in the game and not disturb anything else on the player's computers. Salvato did wish the game included more randomized effects than it already does, but said that he was limited by time constraints and his desire to keep the game fairly small in scope. Salvato also composed the music of Doki Doki. He said that he does have some experience composing as a hobby, but that if the game had been any bigger, he would have had to seek out a professional composer. His music implements repetitive melodies that foreshadow events to come. Doki Doki's gameplay is fairly simple and linear. The game itself clocks in at about 4 hours of playtime, most of which is spent reading dialogue or screaming in terror. The players can choose which girl to appeal to and experience multiple endings. The player appeals to a girl by writing a poem with that girl's particular interests in mind. In Act 1, the player can write poems for Sayori, Yuri, or Natsuki, and unlock special CGs for each of those characters by doing so. You can tell which girl likes your word choice by watching their adorable chibi icons on the left-hand side of the notebook jump up and down. But certain occurrences within the game are inevitable no matter what choices the player makes. And now we have to pause to give you a huge spoiler alert. We're about to get into the nitty-gritty of what happens in this game, and it is incredibly spoilerable. So if you haven't played it yet and you don't know what's coming and you want to, skip to the
Next fact. Yes, I'm also gonna say yes, you probably should believe if you have not played the game or seen anyone play the game. I have seen people play this game. So if you're into this video, keep watching. I have not played it yet. I have seen a lot of endings though. I have watched people play it. So I guess watch people play it if you really want to, but please
next
be
fact.
careful.
Act 1 of all 4 acts has the most choices that affect the particular path the player goes down. You can write a poem for Sayori and Natsuki or Yuri. Towards the end of the act, the player can elect to spend the weekend with either Natsuki or Yuri, thereby getting to know either character slightly better. But no matter what path you follow, all choices lead to the main character finding that Sayori has hung herself at the end of Act 1. When Act 2 starts, the player can choose to write a poem for Natsuki or Yuri, but favoring Natsuki in Act 2 doesn't keep the player away from Yuri for day 2 of Act 2 onwards. Since the game is being manipulated in more extreme ways in Act 2, the player is subjected to glitches that range from the unnervingly altered text to a downright terrifying Natsuki scene. Regardless of whatever route the player takes to get to the final choice of Act 2, and no matter if the player accepts Yuri's confession or not, the final scene of Act 2 is always Yuri stabbing herself to death in the presence of the player. The player is forced to spend the entire weekend with Yuri's body due to a, quote, broken script. Monica then deletes the remaining characters' files, and we begin Act 3. Act 3 consists of nothing but Monica. That's right. Just Monica. She confesses to ramping up Sayori's depression and Yuri's obsessiveness, making them both want to commit suicide and altering lines of text so that each character says only what she wants them to. You can choose to live out your days with your new waifu, or you can delete Monica's character file. This makes the game go completely haywire, though it doesn't appear that Monica is really gone. She eventually decides that harming her classmates was not right and creates a new game for the player, one without her in it, to allow the player to continue making the other girls happy. Act 4 begins with a fresh start. The girls are back, all except Monica, and everything seems, well, pretty Doki Doki. That is, until Sayori reveals that she has now become self-aware as a result of becoming the new club president, and that everything is not, in fact, Doki Doki. Not to worry, though. Monica intervenes and saves the day, deleting the entire game and singing to you the whole way through, leaving you completely traumatized by the end. As I mentioned earlier, Doki Doki has multiple endings aside from the one you reach in the normal playthrough. The game's quick ending is just that, quick. The quick ending can be achieved by going into the game's character files within the first instances of starting a new game. If the player deletes either Monica or Sayori's character file, Sayori will appear on screen and appear to become extremely distressed when she realizes she's stuck in a game. She then closes the game and deletes all the character files, and if the player attempts to open the game again after this, they will be greeted with a black end screen, fading into a black and white image of Sayori having hung herself. If the player remains on that screen for about 10 minutes, the words "now everybody can be happy" appear on screen next to Sayori's body. The good ending can be obtained if the player sees every character's CGs, including Monica's in Act 3, in one playthrough. This can be done by having saved before the first poem is complete. completed, writing the poem for one girl, seeing all her CG, and then reloading to that point to write a poem for all of the others. Once the player has completed Act 3, instead of becoming evilly sentient as club president, Sayori will thank the player for trying to make everybody happy. Instead of receiving Monica's letter at the end of the credits, players instead get read a special message from Salvato himself. Although the game is relatively short, Doki Doki is chock full of secrets and Easter eggs. For example, just the name Doki Doki is the Japanese onomatopoeia for a beating heart, specifically when in love or out of fear. The glitches that occur within the game are also somewhat randomized and can result in different disturbing experiences. Like in Day 3 of Act 2, when talking to Yuri near the closet, Natsuki has a 25% chance of appearing as glitched, with blacked out eyes and a creepy, realistic moving mouth. Each of the character files can be renamed in the first playthrough to reveal either an ultra-eerie artwork or poetry or even a QR code leading to a website called ProjectLibitina.com. We don't know how the website is connected to the game, but most theories speculate that the connection has to do with the third eye. Not only do both Natsuki and Yuri's garbled poems mention the third eye, but there is also an eye visible on the cover of Yuri's book entitled Portrait of Markov. Monica even brings the book up in her monologue, but quickly changes the topic, saying she shouldn't talk about it. This has led to a lot of speculation that the book may be linked to Salvato's next project, but this has yet to be confirmed. While Doki Doki Literature Club initially released as a humble visual novel, the game has since amassed a huge cult following. The game hit 2 million downloads in January 2018 after it was released in September 2017, and won the People's Choice IGN Awards for Most Innovative, Best Story, Best PC Game, and Best Adventure Game. Doki Doki has received largely positive reviews for subverting its outward appearance and invoking terror in even the most steadfast of gamers, your host included. Alright, that's about it. This has been 7 facts about Doki Doki Literature Club, a game that flips visual novel tropes upside down. Thanks for watching.
So, yeah, the game is pretty good, but there's also some people have died from this game. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, maybe it's better if the people don't see that. It's better, I would say. And yeah, the game has had people commit suicide. It's not exactly the best thing, but you know, what can they do? It's mostly just the whole universe that they bring. And as it says, has a very big fan base. One, it has a theory, 2 theories on game theory, as far as I know. There might be more. There's also been Lost Bits, and there's also been this, and songs, and a lot of different things. It is a pretty good thing. Again, that is not exactly the worst thing in the whole world, as to say that people have died by this thing. Which is probably not the best thing. Monica is also treated as a villain, though. In my eyes, she's not really a villain. But that's up to you guys to decide. So yeah, there's not much in this game except that. So if you guys want to see more about these things, then let me know down in the comments below. So that's all about Doki Doki Literature Club for today. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a comment down below. And I'll see you guys in the next research video, which should happen on Monday, I hope. And meanwhile, I am Storytime, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.